So this is the first in the series of the Pleasure Project's new series, Under the Duvet, where we're catching up with the great movers and shakers of pleasure, and we're asking them how they and their organisations are coping, innovating, managing during these odd times. So, in the first of our series, I was very, very keen to catch up with you, Chris, just to find out how you have been managing personally, but also what you've been doing at DKT, like how you've been coping as an organisation to still bring pleasure into everybody's crazy lives in the middle of this tragedy. So just wanted to hear from you.
Well, thanks, and it's always great to catch up with you. And if you'd told me 3 months ago I would be sitting under my duvet having a phone interview about pleasure, I would have told you were crazy. But here we are. So this is a pleasurable thing to do. Certainly take our minds off of these challenging times. I'm going into my 11th week now of work from home. And as you know, things in the States are pretty serious. So it can be a sobering time, and there's lots to complain about, but I'm not complaining. So I have a job, and I'm healthy, and I'm trying to find the pleasures where I can.
So tell me a little bit about what DKT's doing. So at the Pleasure Project, we've been doing a bit of social media work under the hashtag Sexy Safe Isolation. And we've been promoting what people can do on their own or with their live-in partners at home, and just trying to be creative about how people can safely bring pleasure into their lives. And I just wondered what DKT's been doing during these times.
Sure. Well, one of the most interesting parts of this crisis has been to try to understand how human behavior is changing. Particularly around reproductive behavior, sexual behavior, what's happening that wasn't happening before, and what might not be happening that used to be commonplace. And so, and what does that mean for access to contraception and family planning? And so, one of the things we've been thinking a lot about is, we assume that people aren't hooking up the way they used to hook up. They are. Here's my wife coming to join me. For some,
oh my God, what are you
that's
doing?
Anne.
Hi, Anne.
This is my wife, Elsa.
So you're talking to another woman under the cover?
I am. I'm talking to another woman under the covers.
Nice. This is what you do at work?
Nice to meet you in slightly strange circumstances.
My husband is very strange. He has all these pleasure ideas.
We love pleasure ideas at the Pleasure Project. We're all about the pleasure, and DKT is a huge inspiration to us. And we're all about safe pleasure and sexying up safer sex. So never a better time to have safer sex than during the COVID pandemic, when we all have to think creatively and think about pleasure in isolation.
So I let you go and then have fun, have a good pleasure under the cover.
Nice to meet you.
Bye.
So anyway, just as we think about what is changing in terms of human behavior, there's less hookups going on, less premarital sex, less extramarital sex. So does that mean that condom use is going to go down? On the other hand, you have lots of people who are, working from home. You have migrant workers in India who've all left their jobs in urban cities and gone back to Bihar and places like that, and spending time with their wives that they weren't spending time with before. So that's one interesting thought. The other one is related to long-term methods. Are people, people wanting to protect themselves, but maybe they're not going to the clinics anymore. So pleasure is if you feel safe and you feel protected, you're going to enjoy sex more. So we do think about the impact of access to family planning on people's ability to enjoy pleasure. And I think also there's a lot of stress right now. People are, even the best of circumstances, are stressed out, and finding pleasure, sexual pleasure, intimacy, these are all really important parts of mental well-being. And how do we find ways to promote that in a responsible way? Because, there's a lot of public health crises and economic crises going on as well. So we're trying to continue to do the things that we've always done, talk about our brands in ways that inspire pleasure and get people excited to use those products and have fun.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a huge amount of unknowns. They're talking about in the UK, like, is there going to be a huge drop in HIV infection? What do we know about how this is going to affect STI? You're getting lost under that blanket there. I'm a bit worried about you. The blanket's dropping over Chris's head. But yeah, what that means in terms of long-term STI and HIV infection is like a huge unknown, isn't it, in terms of the lockdown as well, or unplanned pregnancy.
Right. And I don't think people are going to stop having sex right now. I mean, people, if anything, they may be having more sex just because they have more, they can have lunchtime quickies because they're working from home. They can, you can't go outside. You can't do things. So people are understandably finding pleasures where they can. We also think that there's probably going to be an impact on abortion care as well. So these are other things that, these are intertwined, these issues, in very important ways.
But there's also a huge upswing in sex toy sales. They're saying that they've gone up like 150% in Canada. I know I was just talking to some people in the UK, and the sex toy sales has massively gone up in the UK. So I don't know if that's also going to affect you, because I know DKT is connected to Adam and Eve. And of course, Adam and Eve's, some of Adam and Eve's profits goes into DKT's work. So I don't know if you've got any perspectives on that, how the sex toy industry.
Well, I haven't checked recently, but last time I did during the COVID-19, I can confirm that that's what I was told, that the sex toy sales are going up at Adam and Eve as well.
Yeah. So do you think there's a good opportunity during, increased sex toy sales, people watching more porn, to think about how we can think about sexy, safer sex? Is that something DKT's like piggybacking on?
Well, to be honest, I think we certainly, under normal circumstances, those are the kinds of things that we embrace. It's in our DNA to leverage contraception, to leverage pleasure, the pleasure of sex as a way, as an impetus and as an incentive to talk about contraception. So I don't think that's changed necessarily. I think what's happened is because of COVID-19, it's, we're battening down the hatches and doubling our efforts to just keep the normal state of affairs working. So I think if I were to venture a guess, most of the marketing teams are really focused on the basics right now.
So what do you think about the opportunities for promoting pleasure during these times? Do you think it's difficult or inappropriate to promote it when there's a pandemic going on? Do you think it's even more vital?
Well, I think it's absolutely vital. I think it is. I think it is more challenging, to be honest, because I think there's so much other information coming out at people, and I think also the bandwidth of organizations like DKT that believe in this is strained, because we are dealing with the realities of COVID-19 and making sure, and the challenges that has placed on us as an organization and the responsibilities that we carry. So I would say it is more difficult. On the other hand, I think everybody needs permission to have pleasure. Everyone needs permission to not be so stressed out all the time, including, I speak for myself. I feel such stress right now, that sometimes I'm not giving myself, time to take a leisurely walk or just to enjoy the garden, or I feel this pressure, right? I'm sure I'm not alone in that. So it's great to have the Pleasure Project and others who say, no, take a break. It's okay. You can enjoy yourself. I mean, even in the midst of this difficult time.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I always say, resilience is about recharge, not resist, right? So it's really, and also, as we know, pleasure in sex education actually improves outcomes, and sex is good for you. It improves your health outcomes. It improves your well-being. And then that brings me on to the very important matter of this being Masturbation May, or Masturbation, as they're now calling it. And it's the 25th year of Masturbation, which was inspired by a woman you must know well, Jocelyn Elders, who was the Surgeon General in the US, who then inspired Good Vibes to start Masturbation May. So I think it comes at a brilliant time because it's right in the middle of this crisis. It's when, obviously, for a lot of people, masturbation is the best form of safe pleasure, of solo sex during isolation. I don't know if DKT has thought about that or has been promoting masturbation in any way as a big part of well-being and sexual health.
I don't think it's a big part of what we generally talk about, but I think mutual pleasuring. I mean, to the extent that healthy sex involves pleasuring yourself or mutual pleasuring, it's certainly not anything we would shy away from. But we tend to talk about pleasure in the context of contraception for the most part. I mean, there's some countries that are a little further along the spectrum on this, like Brazil. But in general, I mean, we tend to be fairly focused on how we position pleasure.
So just before we finish off, is there anything else you want to tell our Pleasure Project viewers? Anything else that they should look up around what DKT's doing, or just anything you want to share?
Well, I can't think of anything. I mean, we're still doing what we're doing. I think that's the main message that I've been sharing with friends and family and colleagues, that if anything, this crisis just shows us how important sexual well-being and sexual health is, and how needed all of us who are working to make contraception more available, how important it is, because these things are a lot more tenuous than we ever imagined them to be. The crisis has thrown that into very stark contrast in so many countries. So we have to double our efforts and stay positive.
Thanks, Chris. That's brilliant. And thanks for all the work that DKT does. As I said, DKT, yourself, Phil Harvey have been a huge inspiration for the Pleasure Project and for flying the pleasure flag for so long. And we'll get there. There's a pleasure wave happening, so we shall get there.
I agree. I agree. There is a lot more dialogue around it, and I think the Pleasure Project gets a lot of credit for making that the case. So congratulations.
Thank you. Well, have a good time now under the duvet. I don't know if you're going to stay under the duvet for the rest of the day.
Not for too much longer. It's very warm here, so I'm going to turn this off.